Hey guitar enthusiasts, Lauren Bateman here. I'm going to show you how to play Love Me Do by the Beatles on guitar, and it requires 3 chords. We're going to be using a C chord, a D chord, and we are going to be using a G7 chord, or you can use a regular G chord, but I'm going to show you how you can transition from C to G7 very easily. Let's take a look. Now, if you know a traditional G chord, you could play that and it'll work just fine. You could either do it with the 3rd finger on the bottom string or the pinky on the bottom string. Either way works. But what I would recommend, because a lot of this verse for this song, we're going to be going from a C chord into the G chord, and I know a lot of students who find that C chord to G chord, that C to G chord change, they find that a pain in the butt. Let me know in the comments below if you hate that C to G chord change. It's very common. So what I would recommend doing, and this is what actually happens in the song, is using a G7 chord. So when we have our C chord, to get to G7, all you're going to do is you're going to expand the C chord. We're going to make it wider. So this first finger is going to come down to the bottom string, and the other 2 fingers are going to move up 1 string each. So this is a G7 chord, and it's a 7 chord. It's really twangy. Has that bluesy sound to it. Now to get back into C, you just move the first finger up and these other 2 fingers back down. So I would just practice going from G7 to C. It's a nice, easy transition. And once you get that down, we're going to be using those 2 chords for the intro in the majority of the verses. So because I'm showing this to you as a beginner lesson, we're going to keep the strumming pattern very, very simple. There are a couple timing things I want you to be aware of. So let's talk about the first strumming pattern that we're going to use. So the strumming for this, we're just going to do 4 down strums with an up on the end, all right? So it'll sound like this. So if we take that C chord, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and... Okay, so that's 4 downs followed by an up. And for many students, I know you guys have trouble sometimes with those up strums. Just remember, when you do a down strum, you're automatically already doing an up strum. So just keep this hand moving. Okay, so if we go between that G7 now and C chord, this is what it's going to sound like, starting with the G7. And the key on that up strum, because sometimes putting that up strum on the very, very end gives you less time for those chord changes. When you're making that up strum, already be starting to get to that next chord. If you feel like your chord changes aren't quite quick enough for that up strum, just on that up strum, let go of the chords. It's okay if the strings just ring open. Just start getting right into that next chord. So that's how we're going to take care of the intro for this song. It's just going to be the G7 chord to that C chord 4 times in a row. So very, very simple. Let's just do that. We're going to go G7, C, G7, C. Okay, we're going to do that chord progression 4 times just to practice the strumming. Ready? So we got 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and... Nothing like a good blooper when you drop your pick. Let's take that from the top again. See, I still drop my pick, even though I've been playing the guitar for decades now. It still happens to me, and I'm not a beginner anymore. All right, let's take it from the top one more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, and... One more time. Now when we go into our verses, this is going to continue, but there's a little bit of a change that happens towards the end of the verses I want you guys to be aware of. So we're going to do the same progression. It's G7C, 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 but then we hold on to our C chord for a little bit longer, and then we cut off the strumming real abrupt. What do I mean? Let me play through this chorus section for you. 1, 2, ready, and love, love me do. You know I love you, and I'll always be true. So please love me do. So here on the last measure, the last two measures, we do the C chord normally, and then on the very last one, we just strum really quick, and then we mute the strings with the fretting hand. So when you take your fretting hand and you just gently place them on the strings, it's going to mute them. So if we do the first C chord, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and okay, so we're just doing the 1 on that second C chord. Let's do it again. One more time. Okay, so you just mute those strings, and then keeping in time, 1, 2, 3, 4, right back into the G7. Okay, right back into G7 in C. So that covers our kind of verse chorus section, and we have a bridge. That's the other part of this song that's kind of a little bit different, and there's also a cool timing in this one as well, so let's go through this. So this is where our D chord comes in. So it's the first time we get our D chord, so we're doing a double D, C, and G. And then on the very last G of this chord progression in this bridge, instead of doing our typical strumming, we're going to do something very similar to what we just did. Let me show you. So it's going to be 1, 2, ready, and someone to love, somebody new, someone to love, someone like you. Okay, so we get that mute that comes in again, this time on the G chord. And you saw I was using the normal G chord there. Again, G7 also works if that's the easier transition for you. So on that final G chord, I'm just going 1, 2, 3, and then I'm muting. So 1, 2, 3, mute. Okay, and then we jump right back into okay. Jump right back into that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play from the intro through the first kind of couple verses and choruses through to the bridge so that you guys can play along with me. Ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, here we go. Love me do. Love me do. You know I love you. I'll always be true. So please love me do. Someone to love, somebody new, someone to love, someone like you. Now I want to point out something very important. You guys may have seen it. By accident, I went to the G chord instead of the G7 chord. So I kind of made a little mistake, but quickly, you saw my hands, quickly, I changed to the correct chord. And this is a very important lesson, especially if you're a beginner. If you make a mistake, keep playing through the mistake. That's how you learn the most playing guitar. Don't stop the song. Keep going. And if you guys are Beatles fans like me, I absolutely love the Beatles. That's my George Harrison Gretsch right over there. Go check out my Beatles playlist. See if there's another song over there by the Beatles that you would love to learn.